the whole thing about the Camino for us is it was the hardest thing we've ever done. It was the best thing we've ever done. And it was a gift that we gave ourselves.
Welcome to episode number 48 of Halfway There. This is the show where we have honest conversations with ordinary Christians about today's Christian experience. I'm your host, Eric Nevins. Thank you so much for joining me. This is part 2 of a 3-part series, really. This is the end of our conversation with Jan Costas. If you missed last week, you can listen to this episode and enjoy it. But if you go back and hear the beginning of her story, you'll appreciate it a lot more. So I recommend doing that. Just listen to both episodes. And you're going to want to listen to next week's episode as well, because we talked to Jan's husband, Mike. You're going to enjoy that. When we left off with Jan, she was telling us about the first couple of days with her husband on the Camino, and she's going to get into that a little bit more and share the rest of the experience that she had on the Camino de Santiago, which is in case you didn't hear that last episode, is basically a pilgrimage. They started at the border with France and Spain and went all the way to Santiago, and this is something that I would guess thousands of people do every year, and it's very, very interesting. So I'm going to let her share more. Before we get into that, though, let me just tell you that you can get show notes to this episode and every single episode of Halfway There at halfwaytherepodcast.com. So please do go there and check that out as well. And without further ado, let's get into the conversation about her experience on the Camino de Santiago with Jan Costas.
So how are you feeling? Like you plan this trip for how long? Over a year?
Yeah.
Right? So you plan this trip, you get into it, you're a few days into it, and you're going, oh my, what am I doing? I've got blisters, I'm hurting, didn't even get my backpack on right. You've had a lot of amazing early experiences with people who are really kind and generous, and I know that continues. But and then you're having this kind of relational tension at the same time. Like, this was not what you were expecting.
No.
How would you deal with that? How did you deal with that?
I just went, I can do this. I will do this. And as we learned later on from different pilgrims, poco a poco, little by little, step by step. So I had started a Camino Facebook page and had Camino friends here, couples, who kind of were mentors and everything. And one of them commented on my page and said, if you want a short day tomorrow, go to this other Z town, and there is a church there that you can stay at. And it was one of the best places we stayed on the Camino.
Wow.
So we decided, okay, with my feet and everything, that would be, and this was only 6 kilometers.
Yeah.
That is not very far at all. But anyway, so we got into this little village, and then we needed to cross the highway, and then go up this steep, not very long, steep dirt path, and which we did. And so pilgrims you start like at dawn, and you stop early in the afternoon because you want to get a bed, you need to rest, you have to wash your clothes, you have to take a shower, and then first few days collapse. Really. Yeah. I mean, you are doesn't make any difference if you're doing short or long days. Everybody is wiped out. And the one thing common to all pilgrims is sore feet.
Yeah.
Throughout the centuries. So anyway, we go up this steep dirt, narrow, rocky path, and come to this church and this expanse of green grass, flat, with some tables and chairs there and some trees. And I mean, you didn't see a lot of lawn in Spain at all, but that's what was there. And we had to wait half an hour or so before the albergue opened. And that day I was walking in my chacos, in my sandals, because it didn't hit where my blisters were and stuff. And when we checked in, and this was not like any other albergues either, usually you just check in and you take your shoes off and put them in a rack, and then you go and you find your bunk and you put your backpack there and everything. With this one, they said, come on in, come in the kitchen. We've got some snacks for you. We have some drinks. There's some fruit. And they said, oh my gosh, look at your feet. Because I had all these bandage, all my duct tape on my toes and stuff. And they brought me a basin of water to soak my feet in. And I mean, this place was so neat. Just wonderful. And I think there were 12 that could stay there. So that night, I think it was before dinner, they had a meditation in the church right next door. So we went up there, and it was above the sanctuary. And to get to the sanctuary, you had to go up this narrow circular stone staircase from, I don't know, the 4th century or something. It's like, whoa. And we got up there to the small area where you could overlook the sanctuary. And we were sitting there with a couple of the hospitaleros, or the volunteers, or the, they weren't in habits, so I don't know if they were nuns or not. But anyway, and they were kind of, so we're all sitting there, and they started asking us why we were doing the Camino. And I said, because I just felt the Camino grab and call me, and it got to Mike, and they asked him, and he said, I'm doing this because of Jan. I'm doing this because I want to be with her. And I think he had said that before, but this time it bypassed my head, because before it was like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
This time my heart heard it.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing, because before that, we were 2 people, we're just doing this thing. We're covering the distance. We're going to do this. And from that point on, we were doing it together. And in fact, I even wrote in my journal, like the next day, I said, this is the first day that Mike has actually walked with me. And it feels so good. And it wasn't like we were side by side, the whole time. But it wasn't this it wasn't this, oh, come on, you're so slow. Oh, come on, hurry up. Oh, we're not covering. We kind of looked at, we had an app that I had, which I would check the elevation. And it also showed, so we'd see if we had a elevation day or a flat day. And it also showed the distances between the towns, and whether they had coffee shops or albergues. In other words, could we just get coffee or could we stay there? And so we would look at that, and then we would see, okay, 2.4 to this one and 4.1 to this one. Okay, that's 6, 7. Okay, we can do a little bit more. What can we, and we would plan it out that way. Or if there was a great big mountain, that we had to get over because there was no place to stay, we would try to look at the distances and try and stop as close to the base of that mountain, so the next day we could up and over. Yeah. And our Camino from that point on just changed, and we were just doing it together.
Yeah.
But even so, Mike would go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how many people you're talking to. Oh, you talk," and we'd stop, and we'd have cafe con leche, and be talking to some pilgrims and stuff. And then when we got home, he'd go, "Oh, you wouldn't believe the fabulous conversations we had."
Right. Because you guys are different. Definitely. Like,
Yes.
You're more extroverted for sure.
Oh my gosh.
I can see that.
But I mean, he met some wonderful people too, and had some fabulous relationships and talks, with guys and stuff. But he didn't have the bathroom conversations that I had.
Yeah, guys don't talk in the bathroom. Not a thing.
Well, so
we just don't do that.
So I had 4, but my third one. So the first 2 were the one who said I was her hero. The second one was the Camino Angel, and the third one was this East German who had just come out of the shower, older fellow, bearded and everything. And I speak German, and so I got to talk to him, and so he was from East Germany, and he told me that he never thought the wall would ever come down. And had it not, he would not be able to do the Camino.
Right.
I that conversation, and I really, really hoped to see him again another time. And that was the only time I saw him. So that was great. Then shortly after that, then we walked into and through Pamplona. It was like, oh my gosh.
Was that gorgeous?
Yes. Yes, we walked through, city gates and stuff, and we ended up in this square with lots of people around and everything. And it's like, where are the arrows? We couldn't see any arrows. And it's like, where do we go? And then Mike goes, oh my gosh, look here, in the sidewalk, there's a shell. So they put like metallic shells and stuff. And it's like, oh, and there's another one. And that's where we first learned that arrows or shells, and we're able to find our way, there. And we stopped at the tourist bureau, and then they told us where to go for an auberge. So we ended up there, and we had a private room. Actually, it had a couple bunks in it, but it was just us. And then the next morning, it was so funny because Mike goes, well, there's a Brit here, and he is not very friendly. And I go, and so we were fixing some toast and coffee and stuff. And so I started talking to him, and he goes, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. At midnight, this gal comes in. So, and she had, been in his room. And then at 2:00 in the morning, somebody else came in. And so we had this really nice night.
Yeah,
just the two of us. And he had no wonder he was not in a good mood.
Yeah.
But I mean, we walked into Pamplona, and we saw this statue that Mike wanted to see with the bulls. I mean, it's like life. The bulls and the guy falling down because the bull's going to trample him. And we went to the bull ring, and you could see, where the bulls go down into the ring.
Yeah.
And then we met some other pilgrims that we had walked with a bit that day, and they were going to meet up with some girls and go for tapas and stuff, and we saw them, and I thought, we wanted dinner, and we were starving. And so we just told them, you guys go, have a great time, and we'll go eat. It was, I think, 5 minutes of 8 when we sat down in the square at this restaurant, and we had our food by 8 o'clock. I mean, it was that quick. Maybe it was 10 minutes till 8, and it was delicious.
Best food you
Yeah, it was just delicious. We had a great night that night. We took off the next morning, walking through the rest of Pamplona, and then saw that there we could get a stamp in our credencial, because you can get it in restaurants and other places
Sure.
at the university there.
Oh, cool.
So we went off the path and finally found it. Had a great time in there. Something special happened in there. I can't remember what.
Yeah.
But then we were heading out of town. It was flat, and this mountain was up ahead, and it's like you see it off in the distance, and you know that that's where you're going, and it's like, whoa, are we really doing this? And I think that was the mountain where they had the metal cutouts. I think that was out of not Pamplona.
It was further.
Okay. Anyway, but we went up this mountain, and just, oh.
That's cool. Well, so you obviously had a ton of great experiences, and we could probably go through every single one of them, but you don't have that kind of time, probably, to give us every day. But I want to hear about, I know that you had some special moments when
Yes.
the Lord showed up. And so can you tell us a couple of those stories?
Yes. The one that, oh my. My feet were not great all of a sudden. And usually by the end of the day, they would just be burning, you know. And so we had decided that we were going to stop at this one village, okay? And I can do that. We got into that village, and it was also on the top of a hill, mountain or whatever, and it was up and down. I mean, steep up and then steep down in the village, and at the top of a hill. And it's like, what in the world? Okay, there's this big mountain here. What would we do? Build a town, of course. It's like, but we found out for defense,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, we could not find the auberge. And I told Mike, I said, you know, I can do this, and I have a few more kilometers left in my feet, but I don't want to spend them going up and down and not finding this and then have to go on. So I said, let's just go. And I just started walking. But emotionally, I wasn't ready. I was ready to stop. And I'm just walking. Okay, just walking. And don't cry, you know, just go. And so so there were like bushes on the left on this path, and then you could see fields and stuff off to the right and going down and stuff. And we're walking along and come around a bend, and there in the middle of nowhere is this guitarist, and he is playing. And I love guitar. And I just raised my hands. I burst into tears. I just raised my hands and I went, Lord, that you would give this to me when I was so discouraged, you know?
Yeah.
And then I just, it was just so incredible. So then we continued on, and I'm still not feeling great. And then off to the left, there is a little path that goes up, not very far, 20 feet. And at the top of that path, narrow and rocky and dirt, is a stop sign. I just had to laugh because it was, to me, it was the Lord saying, stop your sniveling, stop complaining, stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. I get it. I will just, okay.
Right, because the Lord had already offered you.
Yeah.
Love that.
And then when we were in Cyprus and our daughter had been raped, we were given, I was given a flat at the beach, an apartment at the beach, and told, keep your family together, do things every day, blah, blah. Anyway, when we were driving back to Nicosia through the mountains, and it's very dry and it's very rocky, there was a flower growing out of the rocks, a yellow flower. And I said to my daughter, I said, that will be you. So that has been really, really special to me. So as I'm on this path and I'm walking, all of a sudden in the middle of this rocky path is this yellow flower blooming. I won't tell you that I was crying at that time again.
You don't have to.
But I mean, just speaking to me, just for me. And as if that weren't enough, after another kilometer or so, we come across a shepherd and a flock of sheep and a dog. You know, I mean, that may be ordinary in Spain, but it's not ordinary for me.
No.
It's a gift. And then we got, into the village and got someplace to stay. And I mean, it was wonderful. But I asked some of the other pilgrims, when you were coming, since we're all going the same direction, we're all going on the same path, did you happen to see that guitarist back there? No. It was for me.
Yeah.
It was for me.
What does that mean to you?
I mean, I was not alone at all, and I have learned since we got home that, have you ever heard of thin spaces?
Yeah.
If you look it up, if you Google it, it's an actual thing. But it is a place where the distance between heaven and earth is very thin. And what I've found, just in reading, is that the entire Camino is considered to be a thin space. And some places on the Camino even thinner. I didn't know it at that time, but I was in a thin space there when that happened. Now, I would like to say that I was as accepting, but yeah, I wasn't. Anyway, we just had, just things like that you just do not expect.
Yeah.
Another time when we opted to take a bus from Fromista to Leon, because it was like midway. It was an area of the Camino called the Meseta, which is flat. The path or the way is mostly alongside the highway, and the distances between the towns are greater than what we were accustomed to. And we never did 20 kilometers a day. our plan was to do 10, 12, 15 miles, and we ended up doing 10, 12, 15 kilometers.
Which is a little shorter, right?
Yeah,
a
yeah.
kilometer is like 2 kilometers to a mile or so.
No,
Well,
6/10 of
Yeah,
6/10 of
like a
Is
5K.
a mile.
Like a 5K is like 3.2 miles or something like that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and so anyway,
Oh, so
so the
kilometers
distances were going to be greater in
I don't
between places, and you didn't have an option. You had to cover it.
Yeah.
You know, so we opted to, and we were about our time. We had planned 2 months, and we were getting close to that halfway. Anyway, so we opted to take a bus, and when we got to the bus station in Leon, our destination, I ran into a gal that we had met several weeks previous, and I mentioned that we hadn't taken our sleeping bags because it was going to be too warm. It had turned cold, so we knew that when we got to Leon, we needed to get sleeping bags. So this gal, we had this big reunion, and she said that she was leaving Spain because she had injured her foot and could no longer walk. And when she found out that we were getting sleeping bags, she just reached behind and handed me her sleeping bag and said, "Here, take this."
Yeah.
You saw that time and time again. People, you needed something, it was there. And pilgrims take care of each other. It's good.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so take us to the very end, and how it ended for you.
You don't want to hear about the blisters?
Oh, well, tell us the blister story. All right, tell us the blister story.
Oh gosh, so I had my blister kit.
Yes.
We left one village and we're walking, and I see these three pilgrims in front of us. And one of them, I can tell, has her shoe off and has her leg up. And so we go up, and I said, "Do you have a blister?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I can fix it. I have a blister kit." So I did. And she was from Chile and had been working in Zambia as a nurse. And so anyway, I fixed her blister, and I said, "Is that better?" And she goes, "No, it's perfect." So I got to walk with her, and she said, "You are the blister queen." And so I walked with her for a bit, and then she went on. And when we got to the next village, I saw her having coffee, there. And this other gal came up to me. I think I thought she was Canadian or British. Anyway, she comes up and she goes, "I've been waiting for you. I understand you're the blister queen.
Right.
I have a chocolate bar. Can I barter with you for you to fix my blisters?"
Yes.
So I fixed her up, and then several days later or whatever, we were walking and come into this village, and are going to stop for breakfast. And Mike takes his backpack off and sets it down and goes in to order our breakfast. And I go to put my backpack down, and I see his sandals that had been strapped to the side. There was one laying next to his backpack. And I go, okay. So two cardinal rules. One is you listen to your body. If you don't, you pay.
Yeah.
And the one is that a pilgrim does not backtrack. That's cardinal rule number 2. So there was no going back, and we didn't know where it was anyway.
Right.
And so he was down to one pair of shoes. So we had our breakfast, and we're getting ready to leave. And I hear the women at the next table, Canadians, talking about, "Oh, my feet, my blisters." And I went, "I can help you."
Yeah.
So I start fixing their blisters up and everything. And long enough for a woman to come walking into the village with her hand up going, anybody lose this sandal?
Wow.
And so, yeah. And we heard multiple stories of people finding things, and then someone bringing them, or losing things and, finding them. It was the Camino.
Yeah.
It's the Camino.
The thing that strikes me about your journey is, one, the sense of community that people have. But you said it earlier that we're all pilgrims and we're all going the same direction. And so there's this sense of purpose,
Yeah,
that everybody has together. That just sounds really attractive. Right?
yeah. But I will tell you something funny. Our grandkids, when they found out that we were going to be pilgrims, they thought we were going to have those big hats with the buckles,
Right.
and the shoes.
Shooting a turkey.
I just thought that was funny. But yes, yeah, the
That's
sense
awesome.
of community is amazing.
So interesting.
Amazing. One other thing.
Okay.
I was talking with a Romanian friend of mine, and we were talking about different stories and stuff. And she said, Jan, when you were going up that really, really steep rocky place, she goes, did you see those little, all of a sudden start seeing those little pink flowers? And I said, yes. And she said, and they just were like encouragement to just keep going. And I said, yeah, that was just really, really neat. So days after that, we got to where we were going to stop and opted to go 4 kilometers farther to the next town. We were walking path, like kind of through forest and stuff. Mike had gone on ahead, and it was longer than I've already walked 4 kilometers, and I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I questioned as to whether I was even on the right path because I'd seen something else. There weren't any arrows. I didn't see any other pilgrims, and my feet started hurting, and I was getting really discouraged. And I kept going. It started getting rocky. I was like, oh my gosh. Then a couple pilgrims passed me, and I knew I was on the right place, right on the right path. And then it started going up, and it started not nice. And this is when I blew it. What the Lord gave me that time to encourage me was those little pink flowers that we had seen in like little clusters or singles, like a couple here, maybe 3 here, here's one, and maybe a couple more up that really rocky place. I looked over to the right. There was a circle. I can make a circle, as big a circle with my arms.
Yeah.
Solid. Like just a solid circle of these pink flowers. Well, at that point, I was hurting. It was a lot longer than I planned. It was no 4 kilometers. And it was rocky, and I was done. And I looked over, and I saw that circle of solid pink flowers, and I went, nice job, God. Sorry, not working this time. I knew it was for me. I was like, okay, not too great here, Jan.
Yeah. But that has its own significance in your journey, right? That
Yes.
Sometimes there are times when we see God reaching out to us, and we go,
Yeah, well,
you know what? Been there, done that.
that was it.
I'm going to keep moving.
This Italian guy came by, and he passed me, and he turns around. He goes, he didn't speak English, he goes, you okay? And I went, no. And he comes back, he puts his arm around me, he goes, it's okay, not far. And he's thinking, what kind of crisis English do I know?
Right.
he goes, I stay? And I go, no, go on ahead. Anyway, it wasn't a whole lot farther, and this other fellow walked with me. When I got out, Mike and this friend of ours were walking up, and I was like, ugh. I was so sore, and I was done, and I was really angry, that and our friend came up and he goes, oh, he gives me a big hug. Oh, Jan, I'm so happy to see you. You did so well. And let me take your pack. And I go, no. And I was up above watching myself going, why are you so mean?
Yeah.
It was not good. It was not good. We got to the auberge, and I hurt so bad. I must have sat there for like an hour. Mike took my shoes off. I snapped at him because he didn't loosen my shoes enough, and you're trying to pull my foot off. One of my friends, the guy's wife, June, said, Dan, here's some ibuprofen. Take that. You'll feel better. That's the night I met the gal that our hearts connected so fast and so deep. And she was had a prosthesis. She had lost her left leg below the knee, and she was amazing.
She's out walking this thing?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And we were at a long table. I was at one end, she was at the other, and we just connected. We had a bathroom conversation where she just shared who she was. I said, Candace, you're a motivational speaker. Were you a motivational speaker before this? And she goes, no, I wasn't. And she said, I earn a lot of money. I'm financially set. And she said, but I've got these empty places in my life. And we just in a few minutes, just shared her heart. And she was on the top bunk.
Wow.
Not me. And the next day we saw her up the mountain at the Cruz de Ferro, which is the thin place on the Camino. My blind friend I met had been blinded in Vietnam and was walking with his seeing eye dog and left his purple heart and his Vietnam medals up there. Mike had his stones, because traditionally you take a stone from home and bring it up there, symbolic of your journey or people that you're praying for and everything. So he had his stones that he had painted bright orange on one side and had names of people that he was praying for. And so we were both up there, and he was kneeling and he was laying each one down, and I was videoing, and then he went down, and I stayed up there for a few more minutes. And when I turned around, Candace was right in front of me. And we both just grabbed each other and just started sobbing. And I said, Candace, we don't even know each other. And she goes, I know, Jan, it's the Camino. It is the Camino. And then we saw her a couple more times along the way. You asked about the end.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to Santiago. She had texted me a couple times and said, I'm in Santiago. I'm waiting for you. And I told her, I said, Candace, we've planned it out. Even if we, take a day or so off, we're not going to be there for 4 or 5 more days. And she said, okay. And so we got there, and she was gone. And we were there for several days. Took a trip out to the coast to the 00 mark. And And then the day before we were leaving, Mike and I were at coffee, and we were kind of debriefing and everything. And he said, Jan, the one thing I really wish was that you and Candace had been able to see each other at least one more time. You know, it was not 5 minutes later.
Wow.
We hadn't even left. I got a text from her. She said, "Are you still in Santiago? I'm here. Come and meet me."
Wow.
And she couldn't. She had to go to the airport, and but anyway, so we went and met her. You know, for just those few minutes. I mean, the woman that we had met early on, that was walking with her 8-year-old twins. We wondered, you know, we ran into her one time, and then we never, you know, we wondered about her. Okay, when we took the bus to go out to the coast, we get on the bus, and Jan, she's in the very back of the bus.
Wow.
All the loose ends, you know, the Lord just, you know, tied each of those up.
Yeah.
You know, the Japanese, not the Japanese, the Chinese gal, no, Japanese, Katsumi, who I told, Katsumi, you are so brave. We walked with her for several days and stuff. She goes, "Me brave?" She had a little bit of English in school. She spoke Japanese. That's all. She was like probably late 40s or 50s. She was walking the Camino by herself.
Wow.
And she only spoke Japanese. I said, "Katsumi, you are so brave." And ran into her. And she, anyway, we had just wonderful time with her, met her for several meals and stuff. A day or so before we got into Santiago, we're in the forest, and we see this gal sitting on a rock wall, and she's passing out cookies. She said, "Do you want a cookie?" And she was from Colorado Springs.
Oh, cool.
And she's sitting there, and she goes, "My ankle is so bad." She said, "I'm having to stop every half hour and rest it." And she goes, "I trained for this." She said, "I'm in Colorado Springs." She said, "Several times a week, I would go out for 10-mile hikes with my backpack, and look what it got me." She pulls up, she's sitting on this wall, she pulls up her pants legs, and both knees have braces on them. Mm. Both ankles are wrapped, and her legs are striped with KT tape. And she goes, "What's with this?" You know? Anyway, when we got to Santiago, we went to the pilgrim office. We got our Compostelas, burst into tears, you know, went to the cathedral, and then realized, okay, it's afternoon, we need to go eat. So we went to a restaurant and we had lunch, and then we realized we're done. We're done. We don't need to stay in albergues anymore. We actually need to get a pension, which is like a small family-run hotel. We need to get a pension. And we had no clue where to go. Walk out of the restaurant. Jan, Mike, the gal that we met in the forest, sitting on the rock wall. Wow. And she was healed up and everything. And she goes, "Do you need a pension? I'm staying like a block and a half from here. The gal, the woman that runs it is just fabulous. Come on." And so, yeah. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
You only had to trust, right?
I know. I mean, we hadn't even asked. We just had talked, you know, and before you even ask, you know, and that woman, an elderly woman, a widow, I mean, she fell in love with us. and she, brought us cheesecake, and, I mean, Mike and I were just amazed, Oh, and then I told you, every time he stopped in the albergue, he had to wash clothes and everything. So we're staying in a pension now. What does Mike do? Goes upstairs. I walk in. He's hanging his clothes out on the balcony. I was like, I just had to laugh. I mean, it was just so funny. And then the next day, we went back to the Pilgrim office, and our packs were in the room. We didn't have them on anymore. Didn't have that weight. Didn't have our sticks with us. Our walking sticks or anything. And we leave the Pilgrim office, and we're going a different way. We're going up this hill, and we're like, oh my gosh, how did we do this? How did we do this? We were just, we were amazed.
Yeah. How did you say it? Step by step?
Step by step. Poco a poco. Yeah.
I love it. So give us maybe your couple of ideas that you took away from the Camino. Like, if you had to summarize it, what would you say you really took away from the experience?
We would get to the top of a mountain, and we would look back. First of all, we'd go, oh my gosh, we did it. And look back and see how far we had come. Look off into the distance and just go, oh my gosh, that's where we started. And then realize we can do this. What we thought we couldn't do, we can do. And we saw that time and time again. And coming back, realizing that we can do this. Whatever it is. Someone said, can you walk, can you walk across this town, or and it's like, yeah, give me enough time, I can do that. Realizing that I'm not alone, that I'm cared for, seeing God work in my life, seeing other pilgrims come alongside, seeing me come alongside them, I got one morning, a German woman came up. I had spoken with her the previous night in the albergue, and she came up, and we walked together probably for an hour at least, and spoke in German, and talked about everything, and laughed and cried, and just, it just made my heart sing. And then she went on, and one night we went out to eat, and we were sitting at the end of this long table, and there were some other pilgrims at the other end, and this gal was there, and she goes, yeah, well, I just had a bath. And I went, bath? You had a bath? Like in a tub with water, and you could just, and she goes, yeah. She said, I don't like sleeping with a whole bunch of different people. And so I just get on booking.com, and I find an apartment or someplace where I stay. So I've got a couple bedrooms. I've got this beautiful living room, a fireplace with a fire. And then we ran into her, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later. I go, you're the one with the bathtub. And she was German. She had decided that she was going to do the Camino in like a week. And she hadn't trained, obviously. She didn't have a backpack. She didn't have shoes. Or boots. She didn't have a sleeping bag. And in those few days, just in the Camino provided everything that she needed.
Yeah.
You know?
So she just decided she was going to do it, and within a week she was on it.
Yep.
She didn't hike that whole way in a week.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, she did?
No, not in a week.
Oh, no, not from Germany. But she was on the
decided.
Camino.
Yeah.
Right. Within
Yeah.
a week, she
I know
was
what you mean.
on the Camino.
Right. Oh. Yeah, that's awesome. It's great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. It's this is something I had never heard of, but it's clear to me that God has used it, not just in your life, but in a lot of people's lives.
Oh.
And that makes it really
So
special.
the German girl, this is what I wanted to tell you. A few weeks ago, I got a long email from her
Oh, cool.
in German that I could read. And she said, Jan, I keep remembering what you told me, that we regret the things we don't do, not the things that we do. And therefore, and she talked about some, whatever she was going to be doing now. You know, and I thought, you know, when you say something, you don't know, you know, what that person is going to remember or hear. You're not saying like, I'm giving you this nugget of wisdom at all, you know. I mean, I keep getting things. I keep seeing like ways.
It's still shaping you.
Yes. This one fellow who was giving us all kinds of, you know, life lessons. And I stopped him. I said, tell me how I take the Camino home with me. This is when we were waiting for the bus to go from Easter. He said, no, stop. Do not think about how you're going to take the Camino home with you. You are here. You have the pilgrims. You are walking. Be here. Look around. Listen. Experience. That's all you need to do. And that's a lesson that we all know. Be present.
Mm-hmm.
But that freed me up because up until that point, I was like, oh, I think I need to do this. Oh, you know, I need to remember that. I need to, like, I was surprised how good it felt to be up and out each morning at dawn or close to it. Why we don't do that right now, you know, but it did. And to just go. And on the Camino, all you have to do is walk.
Mm.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. And it's life-changing. You know, my goal when I started was to let each day unfold. Not try and force it, not try and, and, kind of go with open hands. Didn't start out so great, but just amazing.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Your experience is beautiful.
Thank you.
Jan, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I really appreciate your experiences on the Camino and the ways that you just saw God show up. I love many of those stories where you felt like God was just right there speaking to you, and you became aware of his presence, which was the message I took from your experiences there. Thank you so much. Friends, I don't know about you, I kind of want to go and take the Camino at some point. This sounds like something I probably need to go and do. I think it would be a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you are somebody who's considering the Camino, or you've heard about it, or you've done it, would you do me a favor and share this episode on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever it makes sense for you? It would sure be appreciated by me. It helps to get the word out to people for whom this show would be an encouragement. That's my goal every single episode. I want you to hear about an amazing story with God. And so if you have been encouraged at all, would you just share that with a friend? Again, social media, or you can always just tell them personally. That would be great. I appreciate it. Hey, next week we got Mike, so come back for that. And until then, friends, keep the faith.